We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Let me make sure my camera is set. Welcome to another episode. Today we are previewing UTSA versus Charlotte. UTSA goes on the road, plays a bright and early game against Charlotte this weekend on Saturday. I am so glad that the game is going to be on Saturday this week. I was really sick of those Thursday games, especially when you look at the contrast between the performances, but that's a whole nother story. We get into a little bit of that. But yeah, in general, today we'll talk UTSA versus Charlotte, and I'll answer some of the questions if people put them back in the chat from Monday that I skipped over because we were just reacting to Jeff Traylor's post or press conference. Obviously, whenever I do these, one of the biggest things I like to sort of lay out for folks is, what UTSA is up against in this Charlotte game. What does this game mean for UTSA? We'll also talk about expectations for these last three games of the season, right? The season is obviously not went the way that us as supporters has wanted it to go. So what can we get from this season? We heard Coach Traylor talk about, it being over in terms of being able to try to compete for a conference title. The next best thing is a bowl game, but based on some of the folks I've talked to on Twitter and X, they aren't looking forward to that type of thing either. So anyway, the first thing I'll do before I get into the questions is sort of talk about what is UTSA up against this weekend against Charlotte. It's a road game. As we all know, UTSA has not won a road game since November of 2023, which is a problem. And it's if there is one sort of blemish on the tenure of being under Coach Traylor, whenever you look at these last couple of years, it's been the performances away. The performances on the road have been lackluster, poor. We do not bring the same team that we do whenever we're in the Alamo Dome. And that's a really big problem, and that's really set UTSA back in terms of what is possible and achievable for them when you look at the goals and aspirations that the fans want, and even the coaches want based on what Coach Traylor was saying coming into this season. So I think that one of the big things is this is a game on the road. The other thing is this team. It's not very good, to put it lightly. No, I don't want to disrespect the team. You can literally not take anything for granted at this point with UTSA because they are such a different team on the road. They are not together whenever they're on the road. Everything seems to unravel. The offensive play calls are not good. The offensive players don't show up. The defense has not shown up on the road very much, especially as of late. And they just have not been able to put it together, even special teams when it comes to that. So Charlotte is 1-8, guys. Let's just call a spade a spade. They have us, and then they have Georgia, number 5 Georgia, right after us, which is going to be a tune-up for Georgia. And then they have Tulane. They got a real tough ending of the schedule. I mean, they've had East Carolina and North Carolina or North Texas before that. They've had a really rough part of the schedule. But here's the thing: they're going to be looking at UTSA like, hey, this is the worst team along this stretch that they're having from. I mean, they listen to this. They went to Army. Yeah, they went to Army. They had Temple come to them, who blew them out. They had North Texas come to them and blew them out. They went to East Carolina last week. They are hosting UTSA this week. They have number 5 Georgia the week after UTSA, and they have Tulane in the season. You want to talk about a rough part of the schedule? I'd hate to be Charlotte right now, but like I said, they got this UTSA game circled as a winnable game for them. These other games, I mean, the other games they've already lost. But like when you look at the rest of the season, this team is going to try to go out with a bang, and some kind of statement win for them to grasp on to something at the end of the season. They're going to be coming out guns blazing against UTSA. So like, even with them having a poor record, you can't really look over them because UTSA has been horrible on the road. One of the things that you're going to see from them, they can spread the ball around a little bit. Their quarterback can deliver the ball to the receivers. They do have a few good receivers that could pose problems for us. We got to be weary of that. I am a little bit concerned about that because Coach Traylor acknowledged that he's really concerned about their receiving core and the type of success that they can have against a struggling UTSA defense and a struggling UTSA secondary in terms of from a coverage standpoint, especially at that safety position. If you look at their quarterback play overall, he's actually been all right in a lot of these games. They just can't put it together. That's what it comes down to. But they have multiple receivers that can hurt you. There's about 3 guys who have had big games across the season at that receiver position. So yeah, they're going to test us in the air. And yeah, I mean, we're going to have our work cut out for us from that standpoint because we aren't very good on the road. So that's one of the things that we're going to have to look out for. Another thing too is like what UTSA team is going to show up. I think that to me is one of the biggest question marks that we kind of have. And the way I look at that is just look at what UTSA has been this season. We show up very well against teams that we are just flat out better than, right? You've seen what we did against Rice. We did really well against them. We just flat out better than them. They weren't really a good team. I mean, you could say that about UIW, although UIW started clawing back at the end of the game, but for large parts of that game, we obviously controlled it. The Tulane game is a bit of an anomaly. I don't really know how to look at that one, but like at least I sort of think this is going to be more like a Rice opponent than anything else. They're the most comparable team, I think, to Charlotte in terms of what's on our schedule. So I expect us to show up, but the fact that we're on the road, there's just going to be bumps. I know it is. I know there's just going to be, things that don't go well. And it's probably like, I think I was telling somebody this, and I said this on maybe one of the other shows I did, but one of the more interesting things that I think that I sort of come out of every week, I'm shocked and surprised by every single performance. I'm shocked whenever we go in and blow out a team like Tulane, right? And then I'm shocked whenever we play a North Texas team and we literally don't show up to play. Or then I'm shocked, not that shocked about South Florida, but it was pretty embarrassing. I'm just shocked after every week. I expect UTSA to play well and dominate this game against Charlotte, but would I be surprised if Charlotte competed? Would I be surprised if Charlotte somehow found a way to win based on what UTSA has shown? I would not. And that is kind of sad. Another thing I've been thinking about is like, have you guys noticed, or not even noticed, but I like to get your thoughts in the comments on this. I can see UTSA going 2-1 to finish this season. I can, and that's because like maybe we don't beat East Carolina, but Army at home. I know that's a game that's gonna be tough, but Army hasn't been great this year. But I mean, they're starting to claw back and play a little better, so that's a little worrisome. But you can see, just UTSA should beat Charlotte, and they to me, I think they'll probably split. But like, I can see a 3-0, I can see a 2-1, I can see a 1-2, and I can also see a freaking 0-3. Like I don't think anybody who's watched UTSA this year would be surprised at any of those outcomes. Wouldn't be surprised at any of those outcomes. And you know what? Like all 3 of those outcomes, there's going to be head scratches with the 3 of them. And I don't know if that's just a little worrisome to me. Weird situation. But anyway, let me jump into some of the comments here as we get this stuff kicked off. Cody says, if UTSA finish 6-6 and a bowl berth, will staff changes still occur? I believe they should happen because the program seems stuck in place. Great question. I'm glad you asked this, Cody. Look. In my opinion, staff changes are coming regardless. I can't see us winning 3 straight. I just said I could. There is possible, but like I'd probably bet that we find a way to go 2-1 and this 6-6 plays out. That is a failure season for UTSA in terms of what the expectations were coming in. Now I see a lot of people saying like, oh, well, I wasn't that hyped about, I was thinking 7 games, or some people were saying 6 games. And I mean, that's fair. I thought we'd be around 8 or 9 this year, and there's games that I can go back to, and I'm like, we should have won that one, and that one, but we're just not good enough this season. Um, but yeah, those coaching changes are going to happen because Coach Traylor is going to have to justify why this happened this season. Um, Listen, a lot of the times the coaches set the tone for what the expectations are. And if your coach is coming to the season saying this team has championship fiber, then guess what? You're expected to compete for a championship. You're not expected to finish 6-6. You know, he told us, he came into the season telling us that 7-5 last year was a down year and it was, unacceptable or not considered a success. However, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but basically he said he wasn't pleased with I think he said he was pleased with the way they finished, but like 7-5 is something they got to be better than. And all for what it looks like now, they're not going to finish above 7-5. So this is going to be an actual step back at the end of the season. I think that's the most alarming part to me is that UTSA, like you expected a bit of a rebuild whenever Frank Harris and the Rashad Wisdom nucleus of a team sort of left and departed, and all of those guys were gone, and you ushered new guys in as we did last season. However, you expected sort of a bumpy road last season because of that, but you were also expected to build upon what you started, the momentum you started to gain at the end of last season, and we just didn't do that. Somebody's going to have to answer that bell. Somebody's going to have to be the fall guy for that. It won't be Coach Traylor. It'll probably be some of the players, but most likely on the staff is going to be one or two of those coordinators. So Coach Traylor has some tough decisions to make. I'd be very, very surprised if he retains both. And we'll see what happens. Unless they show something completely different over these last 3 games, yeah, I just don't see them. I don't see them coming back. With how inconsistent this team is, I'm fully prepared to see us drop Charlotte and finish the last 2 games with the win. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised. It's kind of what I said, Eric. Would you be surprised at any of the possible outcomes? 3-0, 2-1, 1-2, 0-3. I wouldn't be surprised at any of them. Mike says, it was interesting to hear Traylor say they haven't issued all the single digits on defense today. Tells you all you need to know about team leadership and lack thereof. You know what? I have some thoughts about this. Listen, he's been very, very hard on the defense after this game. And they deserve it, but he doesn't bring that same energy on the offense, bro. He just doesn't. And I don't know if it's because he expects higher of the defense or what. I actually don't know how, because the defense coming into this season was expected to be bad. He talked about last season, the defense was, think about it. Last season, the defense had the veterans, so the defense had to were the better side, so they had to hold the fort down until the offense caught up, right? And then the offense caught up in the second half of the season, and we finished the season well. Well, this season, remember what he said coming into the season, because we brought all those guys back on the offensive side of the ball, the expectation was the offense is going to have to keep us in games to allow our defense to ramp up this year. And I feel like right now he's going at his defense, and I get it, right? Like 2 out of the last 3 weeks, your defense is giving up 55 points twice. Can't happen. I don't care if you're playing teams way better than you, can't happen. So that's something to think about. And over the last, like I said, the last 2 out of the 3 games have been poor. They were great against Tulane, by the way, but they were poor against North Texas on the road. They were poor against South Florida on the road. But like when you go back to some of them, they played well against Tulane. They played well against Rice. Like I said, I think they played well. They played not even. I think they played well against Temple. But our offense and special teams gave Temple the ball in very advantageous situations due to turnovers and things like that, and just poor kicks. If you guys remember, that led to a 21-point third quarter. which our offense could not respond. They only put 21 points. They played great against Colorado State. UIW you can throw away, but they played pretty good against UIW until the very end. And then even Texas State, yeah, Texas State put up 43 points. They weren't the best at Texas State, right? However, if you remember that Texas State game, they gave UTSA's offense the ball 3 times to tie or take the lead at the end of the fourth quarter, and the offense couldn't show up. So anyway, I say all that to say, like, he has not had the energy he's shown with the defense. He hasn't shown that to an offense that is as hot and cold and has been cold a lot of this season. They've been more cold than the defense has been. And the defense has not been great, but I don't think our offense has been better than our defense. And it's just interesting that he's like really, really going in on the defense in the way that he is. To me, that signals, well, you know what that worries. What worries me there is it could be a signal that he's leaning of letting Lep go and keeping Burke, and that'd be I listen, if that happens, I'm gonna do a show, and there's some supporters who won't like what I have to say about that. But I expect him to make the right calls at the end of the season, and we'll see what happens. The team just sounds so down, like they're just wanting the season to end. What can coaches do to improve team morale? Listen, the coaches probably want the season to end. Listen, these coaches are normal human beings just like we are. They have the same exact feelings. Coach Traylor is a normal human being just like we are. He has emotions. He knows this season has been poor. He's probably ready to scrap everything and start next season also. Like, he's never going to come out and say that. I'm sure he's happy that he gets another opportunity week in and week out to improve and to evaluate his team and to get prepared and things like that. And obviously, it's opportunity to get more data, right? So yes, you want to go through that, but like, he had big expectations coming into this season, and now he has to punt on those goals that he have, and now they're trying to find new goals. And I guess the new goal is to make a bowl game and to do something like that. He's talked about, it's tough going to 5 bowl games in a row, whatever the case. And that's where he sort of moved his target toward. But yeah, like I don't like. I can tell you right now, there are players who are already looking at their next move, figuring out what the market's going to be like for them. There's going to be a lot of people hitting the portal. I know there's a lot of people already putting out questions and fillers. Trust me, I've gotten a couple. I've had people reach out to me to ask about certain players, about UTSA in terms of what they bring to the table. So, yeah, it's things are moving. People, like, everybody hates the end of a bad season, especially when you feel like you're not playing for anything. Now these guys do have something to play for, a bowl berth. There's money and funds associated with that, so we definitely need to make that happen. So we need to win 2 of these 3 games, so that do have something to play for. But yeah, there's going to be a dip in morale based on the team not being where they expect it to be, and some of that morale is not going to come back. Mike says, I doubt we lose against Charlotte, but what if we do? What then? Does someone get fired immediately? I feel like this season has set the program back years. I will say this. Charlotte, I don't want to jinx us. Charlotte's not, just being objective, it was not fun watching tape on Charlotte and watching their games back. They're not that good. They just aren't. UTSA is not that good either. But based on some of the performances they've shown this year, and trust me, I'm talking about this year, and because this year hasn't been great, they should still walk in and beat up on Charlotte. They should. Will they? Who knows? Because who even shows up to that game? Who even shows up to road games for UTSA at this point? But if we were to lose to Charlotte in a bad way, I think heads would roll. I think, yeah, heads would roll. I think that would push Coach Traylor to do something that is to do something that's probably a little out of his character. I think he like if like for example, if our defense gave up 55 points against that Charlotte team, I don't know if just Lep's badge is going to work trying to get into the facility the next day, you know, um, because of the pressure he's putting, the public pressure he continues to put on the defense, which is, I wouldn't say the same thing about Burke though. If the offense goes out and has a nothing burger, he's going to protect. I get him protecting his quarterback 100%. He should do that. But I don't know. He just seems to have bias is not the right word. I mean, I don't know if it's bias. There seems to be a pattern that at least I feel like I've caught up on. And he's a bit more tougher on the defense than he is on the offense. The offense, he makes some excuses and, you know, there's always a reason something didn't happen. But on defense, I mean, yes, you know, he's defended the defense a little bit this year, but like what he's done over the last few weeks is interesting, considering the offense has not been great either. Yeah, I'm not Mike. I mean, yes, happy birthday. He is a human being. Happy birthday to the OC. Joker one says, Darian, what are your thoughts on Lisa hiring the new associate AD CFO? Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting hire. I think someone asked me this today in the DMs, or today. I think I responded today. I don't know when the message came in, but here's the thing. So there's a lot of discussion about Lisa Campos. And it always happens, right? Like whenever UTSA starts to do bad, this is going to be a topic of discussion. And it's a very delicate situation I don't know, people ride for her hard. And, you know, there are a lot of strong opinions. There are a lot of people who don't like opinions against her in a negative way. Here's what I'll say. So I think in theory, the hire is a good hire based on what that person is coming in to do. Because I am certain that UTSA has already had someone where that was their roles and responsibilities. But now you're bringing someone with a little bit more expertise and specialty in that area to come in and do that job. So in theory, that is good to add to the team because now I have a specialist sitting in this role. So for that, yes, I think it's important that Campos continues to build the infrastructure that UTSA needs to be able to raise the bar and continue to develop as a program. And these types of hires sort of buffs up the org chart to make sure everybody is working in sort of a cohesive unit and that you have the best people doing the job that they're supposed to do and able to push the program forward. So yes, in a box, that's a good hire. But there's a reality that comes with that also. And the reality is, okay, it's one thing to go bring in the expert. What is the expert going to deliver for UTSA? Is this going to be, how meaningful is this going to be? Or what is the meaningful impact that this person will make? And how are we going to see that throughout the program? You know, is this are they going to come in and save money somewhere? You know, are they going to be better with our resource management so we can, you know, knock out some of the short-term needs that we need to be able to compete, but still keep in mind the long-term plan ahead. Like we still have to see, all right, it's good that you got the hire, but is the hire going to be able to come in and make a meaningful impact? The jury's still going to be out on that. But I think anytime you buffer up your infrastructure to make sure that you're, going in the right direction in terms of building that program, all you can do is tip your cap to it and wish them the best. Do we need a CFO and a GM, or can we afford all these executive positions? Seems like a lot of executives for a program who complains about money. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. What's funny about all of these positions is now To be fair, I have not been inside of a program to really understand the org structure in that way. But like they have some really colorful names and job titles, and I like they're not all getting paid executive level like salaries that you'd see at like your normal job, right? At least I don't think they are. But you need people to come in and manage money. You need people to come in and make you money, and all of it is at the end of the day, I think positive because this like these hires and all these people that are bringing in should be a good investment for the long term for UTSA and the short term. But yeah, I mean, we just have to wait probably years to actually start to see some of those improvements. I don't know if they do a great job of still being like transparent enough about the wins, because there still seems to be discourse within the fan base where people are like, money is always the problem. And depending on who I mean, Trailer is now again lobbying for money in press conferences again. That to me signals that something's still not clicking. And it's going to be interesting to see the portal. How much are we going to be able to do anything with this stuff? I can tell you the folks who I've talked to, um, we are not in a very different spot than we were before the season from a money standpoint. Like, so yeah, my thoughts exactly, Mike. Let's see. Anthony says, won't be surprised if we make a bowl. However, definitely won't be surprised if we lose the rest of the games due to our players bought in on their body language so far. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be tough. I genuinely think we'll beat Charlotte, but I am worried about ECU. That's a game that I don't know if we're gonna beat that team. They are good. They're a good team. They started a little slow, but they've picked up. They're a good team. I've watched a little bit of them. Army too. They're always a nightmare, and they travel well with fans and stuff because San Antonio is a military town, so there'll be a lot of people there. So that one I'm worried about. I'll be honest. David says, I'll be at the game to visit a friend who's going with me to the game. He graduated from there. Row one, hopefully they pull it out, pull out the dub. Birds up. Yeah, I hope they do too. Shout out to David, man. Those away games. I don't think I've ever been to an away game. So shout out to you guys for making that happen. Giving them some cheers while they're on the road. Texas Maximus says, I agree. Could see any variations of wins and losses with the last 3 games. If we let the coordinators go this offseason, where do we look for the new coordinators? Other coordinators in the conference or somewhere else? You know what? I don't know where, but I'm sure Coach Traylor has a lot of smart people that are in his contact list that he has relationships with across the country. And people will be chomping at the bit to come work with him, I think. Just based on some of the coaches I've talked to and what they think of him. He's an awesome guy to work for. He gives his coaches, he allows them to have work-life balance because most coaches don't. Most head coaches don't. And these guys are never like home to their families, and Coach Traylor makes sure he prioritizes that. So he'll be an easy guy to work for and work with. And I know he has a lot of smart minds, I'm sure, in his contact list. So trust me, there'll be people chomping at the bit for that job. Random question. Have you heard anything about Frankie Arthur, another 4-star running back, but I haven't heard his name mentioned. I have not. Completely silent on that front. I have not heard one thing about him. Fire all. Ernesto says, fire all the coaches. Hard. How hard is it to teach tackling? How hard is it to pull players when they drop balls and miss tackles? Why is this happening? It's not astrophysics. Interesting. I mean, listen, I will say that I have heard from more people. I do not agree with this at all, but I've heard more people be out completely on Coach Traylor this year. And that's a big surprise to me. I've heard a lot of people say, let's just start over. And I think it's a bit of an overreaction, but I do understand how, he can be frustrating. He's a loyal and stubborn guy, and it is great when it's working for us, and it can be very frustrating when it isn't. Right. So I just think you got to be patient with him. He's already proven that he's a winner, and he can win in San Antonio when against the crop of teams that we're playing with. But yeah, he definitely has to make some hard decisions. He has to make some changes. He's gonna have to get to a place where he's a little uncomfortable a little bit more and make some decisions. I think he'll do that. I respect him as a leader. I can see his leadership. I've talked to players who've been coached by him, and they talk about how great he is. I've talked to staff around UTSA, and they talk about how great he is, how he treats people, the type of culture he sets. I think when you have that sort of thing, and he's already proved he can win, you don't fire the head man. Now, that does not mean the head man doesn't need to make some tough decisions, which I think everyone's sort of calling for him to address his coordinated situation. Um, and I think he has to. He also has to address the portal, the players that we have, respect to them, but they're not at the top of the conference in terms of talent and what they can put on the field. That's just me calling a spade a spade. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think we are UTSA should be gearing up for an overhaul this offseason. But we'll see what that looks like. We'll see, and with that overhaul, is going to mean parting with some coaches that he's probably super loyal to and he's probably super close with, and parting with some players that he may have identified as top players for them. But some of these guys are in positions that they are. Y'all know how I feel about some of our guys being misprofiled. I think that's happened quite a bit with this bunch, and yeah, we'll see what happens, man. I think it comes down to money for UTSA. We are about $6 to $8 million short to compete in the American Conference. We probably should have stayed in the Conference USA. I mean, I don't want to say we should have stayed in Conference USA. We'd probably be doing better if we were there, but it's not really about that, right? You want to be striving for something, and it is tough to go to any. It is tough to go to a new conference and just go there and dominate, right? You got to get used to the style of play, the teams, the way they're scheduled, and all those. There's just things. There's an adjustment period has to happen. But I think what it is showing is we have to raise our level if we want to compete. We have to, and that's across the board. Coach Traylor has to raise his level. He has to raise his coordinator's level. Lisa Campos is going to have to level up from a football standpoint because they're doing great everywhere else. But she's going to have to figure out, all right, what cogs do we have to move in the machine to make it work for football? Because right now it isn't. So I definitely think it's a money problem, but I don't think UTSA's money problem, it won't be solved in the next 3 years. It won't be solved in the next 5 years. It probably won't be solved in 10. Like this is a really, really long-term project. Unless some of us hit the lottery and then we can go and help UTSA, and that may happen. So make sure you guys play your power balls and all that stuff. But in reality, that's sort of what they're looking at, and I think the American Conference move was the right move for UTSA, but it's just showing that like you got to raise your level. You got to raise your level. You got to be a little bit more cutthroat. You got to make tough decisions, and it is what it is. They got to do their thing, and they got to rise to the occasion here. Joker says we won't know about CFO until fiscal year 27. But this guy needs to be a fundraiser and hopefully not a CPA. Probably paying him 150 to 300K could get a OT or a offensive tackle or a pass rusher with that money. I mean, yeah, listen. You're spot on about everything you said here. I think that someone coming in that has a good idea. I mean, the fundraising, I don't know if that'll be his job, you know? I don't I don't think that'll be his job to come in and fundraise. I actually don't know. Let me see. I actually don't know what I should go and read his read exactly what his job title is. Let me see if I can find it really, really quick. Or like not what his job title, but his roles and responsibilities. I was looking over at the yesterday, I think, and it sort of dropped out of mind. Where is it? Uh I think it's on UTSA athletics page, not UTSA football. I think that's where it's at. UTSA. Of course. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay. So John Center Jr. Let's see. His role is UTSA Vice President. Okay. He's a senior associate athletics director for internal operations. In his role, provides leadership to UTSA athletics business and financial operations as the department's CFO, including budgeting and resource management. He also oversees athletic equipment and facilities units. Yeah, he's not coming there to sell. He's not going to be in a front facing role where he's going to be selling things. At least not to my based on reading that. So yeah, he's going to be in there making sure we get the most out of the resources we have, and then trying to find ways to open up money. That's essentially what his job's going to be. Sourcing is going to come in at. He's going to try to source and probably try to trying to get the most out of your resources. Try to make sure that we're purchasing the right things. And probably negotiating some contracts and those sorts of things. So yeah. Coach's attitude, this is from Anthony. Coach's attitude has been low all season, and the NIL and fan knocks hopefully come to an end because he has lost that privilege to speak out on that after USF closed the door on that last week. Yeah, it's interesting. One of the more surprising things from Coach Traylor for me this season is like I like that he shows his he wears his sort of emotions on his sleeve. I actually like that because you get a little bit more into the psyche of what the coach is actually thinking and what he's actually feeling and how he's operating and things like that. But I think that he's done a couple things that have shocked me. Number one, going at the fans a few times and the media a couple times. Just I don't know, just kind of showed how frustrated he is and that he's letting outside noise kind of rattle him a little bit. That's interesting. And then the other piece to this is it's interesting how there was no talk about money for a while and resources, and then boom, it just started happening. And he was really loud about it. And I'm like, what caused that? What caused that? It was quiet and then boom, I don't have resources. Make sure we're investing in football the right way. What's causing that? What's causing that? Is it the losses? Because then that's just him losing composure at a press conference. But it's just not something I would expect from him. Anthony says, "Oh, and I would bet that 50% of our roster is gone after this season. The writing is on the wall, and it's unfortunate that we're in this position." I don't think that's unfortunate, if I'm being honest. We need an overhaul. 50% of our roster being gone is not a bad thing, I don't think. I don't think we have good enough players to compete with the top of the conference. So you bring new players in. So I know a lot of people look at that like, oh, you're going to lose half your team. I don't think we have great players just up and down the roster. I mean, we have some good ones. Don't get me wrong, of course. We have some really, really good players, but there's a lot of players who probably aren't at the level that we need them to be at. And that's just me being completely honest. Like I said, I'm not going to ever call any of these players out individually, but I just think, a roster overhaul, if that happens, I invite it. We need to get Henry going. Seems like his production is slow. Yeah, it's definitely slowed. But here's the thing. I don't even think it's film. People Coach Traylor talked about it. They're putting 8 in the box. They're making sure that he doesn't beat them. So yeah, it's tough for him to find lanes. It's going to be tough for him to do things whenever they're coming in to stop him. Because guess what? If they slow down Robert Henry and they slow down the run game, we aren't consistent enough through the air to punish teams. we've had some high points, but we've had a lot of low points as well. Uh, so yeah, that's the real reason. It's just once teams get enough tape on somebody and enough tape on a team in a particular area of their game, they can scheme and take it away. Colonel Sanders says hard to disagree on staying in CUSA. Would have been stuck playing Sam Houston, making about $30 a year in TV pay. Yeah. I'm not like you can't. I understand the frustration with not being great. We should want to win every single game. It's not acceptable for UTSA to be in a position that they're in. However, we're not always going to go 12-0, and then moving to a better conference is going to mean the competition is going to be stiffer, and you shouldn't run from that. We shouldn't have the mindset that, oh, let's run back to this Conference USA because it's too hard up here. No, raise our level. That's the part. That's the thing. Raise the level. Raise the level. You got to raise the level of player, raise the level of coach, and raise the level of your program to compete at the new level that you're on. You don't run back to Conference USA. It could be worse. We could be Texas State. What a meltdown that Texas State team is, isn't it? My goodness. That's. I mean, oh yeah, they did lose and start fighting. Yeah, I mean they're 3-6 guys. I would not. They have not won an FBS game since they played us earlier this season, which is sad. But yes, they haven't won an FBS game since September 6th. Their other win was an FCS team against Nicholls State. Other than that, they've lost. They haven't won a game in conference. Insane. In freaking insane. I don't know what, and they got another tough one, bro. They're probably not going to beat Southern Miss this weekend. I think they play this weekend. Yeah, they're not going to. They on the road in Southern Miss. They got a tough out, bro. They got a tough out. I miss Will Stein. Can we hire Pete Golden back, bro? I'd take Pete Golden wouldn't dare come. I mean, that dude is top level. He trust me. He ain't come back to low UTSA unless he's taking a head coaching job. We ain't getting no Pete Golden. I've heard some stories about that guy. I've heard some stories about that guy. He's a savage. He's somebody I like to play for. I've heard some good stories about Pete Golden in his UTSA days for sure. Never had the pleasure of meeting him, but I hear he's a fun guy. Oh man. Let's see. I wonder where we will be if we move to the Mountain West instead of the American. I like being in the American though. The Mountain West, I don't know where we'd be. I mean, based on how we played this year, I can't say we'd just be much better than where we are. The Mountain West, not great, but they're not bad either. Like, yeah, some of those Mountain West is not bad at all, actually. Like, I don't know if we'd just be better. Like Boise State, UNLV, Colorado State, Fresno, San Jose, Air Force, Hawaii. Yeah, bro, I low-key don't like that. I don't. I like where we are. I like where we are. I'm good where we are. Shout out to Angela. She says maybe we can pass the hat at the Dome each game. Every dollar count. Hey, every dollar does count. Maybe we can. Trailer's frustration level can be gauged on how many times he says Bubba. He do be hitting that Bubba, don't he? Yes, yeah. That man's in East Texas for sure. Sounds like a poor use of money. Lisa keeps hiring people to do a job she could do. That money should be spent on getting players and on the current team. Probably why Boost is calling for her job on social media. I mean, she probably doesn't need to do some of that job. Like, she's wearing a lot of hats. To be fair to her, like, trust me, I've given her a lot of flack over the years. She's wearing a lot of hats, so she does need to build a solid infrastructure around. Because if you look at some of the better programs, they have all of these things in place, and they've been having them for years. So I don't think she's I don't think these are necessarily bad moves. We just need to like, and I'll say this again, and I'll probably wrap here unless we get some more comments. But this is the last one on the whole Campos thing. Now, people use the fact that she hires great coaches, which that she does, and she let us know by saying, what did she say when Coach Traylor won 50? I was so it was kind of cringeworthy for me, but she just basically said, "Oh my God, I'm so glad I hired this guy. Like I hired this. I'm the like shine a light on me because I hired him." I mean, get it. I mean, I'm all for it. Like have your fun in the sun, but she does hire really well. She's hired really well, but like what people are seem to miss with some of this is like there's other parts of her job that are going to be under a microscope. And you can't just say, hey, well, she does this one thing so well. We just need to ignore everything else. And that is that's just something that like when you go into these when you have these conversations about the AD, like sometimes people are like so locked in on these coaching hires that like you're missing the fact that we don't like there are signs that are showing that we are failing in some critical areas. And then there's just also sentiment about what's happening. I think that she's a divisive subject for a reason. Um, I tend to think she does, like I said, she does some things very well, but there are other things based on people I've talked to and based on just from my seat looking at that I'm like, we should probably do better than that. Because one of the things I've also done is I've had the opportunity to like talk to some people who run programs in other areas, um, and they've sort of given me a sort of inside track on what their decision making process is and why they do certain things and why they make certain moves and some of the strategies they're using to make money for their players. And one of these groups or one of these teams more specifically is in the same boat as UTSA, but they're doing more with less and they're able to find a way to get dollars from the people that you wouldn't expect to get dollars from, and they're doing that at scale. UTSA is not doing that. And UTSA does have a loyal fan base, but like there is something missing in terms whenever you talk about fundraising. And I think that much is obvious. And then you can't have deep pockets. You can't have people with deep pockets that could actually meaningfully help UTSA say, I'm not going to contribute to the program because she's leading it. So to me, that is a donor relationship issue that has to come that will come to the forefront, that needs to be addressed. And yeah, you just have to resonate. You have to resonate with the people. You have to resonate with everyone. And if you're, I just don't know if like being such a divisive subject is the best thing, considering where UTSA needs to grow. But it is fair. She does hire very good coaches who do a lot with less. And that is a stopgap that is covering up some of the other issues. And it's honestly buying her time, which objectively is a good thing, for her sake and her stewardship. So there you go. But Ernesto says, besides the money, what things are we missing? I know the infrastructure needs like the indoor baseball field, but to raise our level, what are we missing? Yeah, I mean, listen, I think when I say infrastructure, so yes, we are like missing actual physical infrastructure with like baseball fields, covered pavilions, and all that type of stuff. I think we did pretty well with the race facility. I think that's pretty good. Certainly an improvement. And the other race facility that's coming for the other programs. So you have to give credit to those things. So there is some things that are better. I do think some of the hires that she's making and having experts come in and be able to do some of these jobs are a good sign. But how quick are we going to start seeing the results from that? And then I also like I said, there are a lot of programs that are really good at selling, and you can see it. It's not even a mystery. You can see that they're really good. You can see the way their fan base is opening their pocketbooks for these particular programs, and it is paying dividends. For whatever reason, it is very, very tough to do that at UTSA. And I think we just have to figure out a way to do that. Also, the coaching things too. Like whenever I say raise level, like I don't think we have good enough players, at least in football. I just don't think we have good enough players. If we don't have good enough players, we dang sure ain't got good enough coaches. One of the two. But I think it's a little bit of both. And in order to, and this is what I mean about the money piece, right? If we were getting more money, we'd have more money to spend on a really good coach and really good players, but we aren't getting that. So you have to sort of, and this is what I mean by some of those signs, like footballs. I'm not surprised these other teams are doing a little better than football right now, because you can't hide anything in football. You can't hide anything in football. If your recruiting sucks, it's going to show at some point. It's showing, isn't it? If your coordinators are lacking, or people are moving past them, or they're inexperienced, it's going to show, right? This sort of inconsistency that we're seeing night and day on the game is showing youth inexperience, and that we're playing against coordinators and players and teams that are a bit more savvy, that have, they just have an up on what we're doing. Some of these groups have a more modern game than we do. UTSA does not have a very modern game right now. So yeah, I think everything, the whole system has to level up. Mike says maybe we need to have a spring game. Not having one jinx the entire season. I don't like not having a spring game. I hope they bring that back. Who cares? I mean, the people are going to go in the portal anyway. Like having a spring game is going to, man, come on, man. The rejected vote to raise the athletic fee is killing UTSA right now. Lisa and her staff did not do a good job on advertising that to the student body. Won't be up for vote again for a while. Yeah, I mean that's something that people point back to that hurts, but that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like like I said, I don't even know what you call it, program or whatever. She just has to resonate with everybody. I'll say that. I don't want to continue to bore you guys with my opinions on what needs to happen and what doesn't need to happen. But yeah, like to me, she has a lot of really good strengths. But there are some signs that things aren't perfect. And there are some more obvious signs that you can just sit on your social media and look at, or go to, you can just tell off top. But I've also talked to many people at the program about what their thoughts are in very private conversations, and they've been very candid with me about how they feel. And they've been very candid to me about what our decision making is. And they've been very candid to me about what we are lacking. And they've also been very candid to me about why that's happening. And it all goes back to this, to the athletic director. And this is what I'm saying. Whenever I have this conversation and people ask me about this, especially her diehards, it's tough to have that conversation, because they're going to go to this, and I'm like, okay, how can I hear where you're coming from, But if everybody around me is telling me the same thing, the people who are actually within the program, then what am I supposed to say? How am I supposed to feel? You know, it's tough. Asking the students for money was a mistake. No one asked the students about King fees. It's rap said they had to vote after losing to Houston. They didn't really capitalize on things well. They do it at the worst time, it seems. Yeah. No one asked students about parking fee. Anyway, okay. Shout out to Joe, man. Appreciate the comments. Let's see. We got one more. What happened to handing out tacos and pizza? Was that a thing? I might have missed that one. Anyway, all right, guys. I'm gonna wrap right now. I am traveling this weekend. So I may do a show afterwards, but it'll probably be from a cell phone or something like that. So you guys are gonna have to bear with me. I'll try to bring as much equipment as I can, but yeah, that's gonna be a little tricky. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Birds up.